Hello, hello, hello. My name's Eddie Obeng, and this is how to get stuff done. I supply you with ideas, tools, people engagement tools, performance enhancement tools, one at least a day. And if you want more, you can always subscribe to the newsletter, and then you can get lots of them. Or you could actually join the club on Cube, and then you'll get a real person to help you with them. Today, I have a treat for you. It's about trying to create a blog or a communication which really sticks. So either for presentation or in writing. Let's have a look. Let's jump on Cube. Let's get started. So welcome to Cube, where, as you know, the sky is always blue and the sun is always shining. So Eureka Blog. Let's jump a bit closer and understand what the challenge is. One of the biggest headaches we have when we're working, especially if you're working on something creative, is you end up with a sort of pass the parcel. So one person writes the first document, then they pass to someone else for comment, then they pass to someone else, then it comes back for errors, and we just pass this thing round and round and round. If you want to be effective in the new world, add speed, trying to really beat the whole AI thing, because remember, human beings are still smarter than AI, especially if you collaborate without any egos. You want to bring everyone in. You need to have a connection with people. I've given them all laptops here because I'm pretending they're all going to be on Cube, as you would be. And what we're going to look at is how do you create an amazing breakthrough blog communication as a collaborative activity. And that's what Eureka Blog is about. Generally, when you're trying to write a pitch, it's quite difficult to get people engaged. Often they fall asleep. You'd have fallen asleep reading blogs in the past. So 2 stories very quickly. The first is when I was doing my MBA, I'd been taught about arbitrage. Go and look it up. And the next day I was stuck in a traffic jam with my wife, and we were crawling along. And if you know anything about arbitrage, it's about taking small opportunities so you can get ahead. So I said, let's try this arbitrage thing and see if it works. So what happened was I would see if there was a gap, and then I'd jump to the slightly faster line of traffic. And then if that one moved a bit faster, then I'd jump to the next one. And we slowly made progress. We basically got about 4 or 5 cars ahead of the other ones just by jumping one side to another. What does that tell you? It tells you that most people use the information they have, and then they get stuck in it. They get momentum, which keeps them going, which really locks them in place. And then they're stuck in that particular rut, and they tend not to move forward. So generally, what you must know about life is what everybody knows is either obsolete or incorrect. That's a fact of life, okay? So when people say, I just heard this on the news, and they're all talking about it, one thing you must know is that whatever they're saying is either obsolete or incorrect. The second one is the inspiration from a chap called Archimedes. Archimedes apparently was having a bath, the bath of his life. He'd been trying to solve the problem of density of solids. He jumped into the bath, the water overflowed, and he figured out that more dense stuff would make less water overflow, and less dense stuff would make more water overflow. And he shouted, Eureka! That's the story anyway. So that's what Eureka Blog is about. It's about moving from what everybody knows to something which is a real breakthrough. So let's have a look at it. It's one of these pets which is built for collaboration, but it's built in multiple different layers. This is what we're going to cover in the chapters. The headline. Always write your headline last, once you've learned what you're going to talk about. You work on what everybody knows, then what only some people know, why what everybody knows is wrong, then what nobody knows. Then you write about the implications of what you just said and the recommendations so people can act. So you would work your way through with the headline. Obviously, you're not going to do that yet. What everyone knows. And collaboratively, you'd stick your Post-its up to talk about what that looks like. Then you'd move on to what only some people know. You'd capture those as well. Then you'd move on to why what everyone knows is wrong. Then you'd capture those as well. And then you move on to what no one knows, capture those as well. And then the implications. What does this mean for all of us? Short term, long term. So that's helping people to see beyond where they are, but also fear, because that will often make people just freeze into place. So what's that going to be, so that you can tell them how to avoid the fear. And greed. Sometimes they go rushing off. We're going to do Bitcoin because we're going to be rich tomorrow. And so you help them to move past that sort of human greed thing to actually do something which is going to work and is worthwhile. And so you move on to your recommendations, and then after the recommendations, you're into your summary. So over here, I've put a little example. So here's the first one, which is the header, which has got everything in it. Headline, we're probably not going to work on. And then what we move into is things like what everybody knows. Let's have a look at what everybody knows. So what does everybody know? Everybody knows AI is the next big thing. It's coming whether you want it or not, etc., etc. And so you work into that one. I don't know why this one's here. Ignore that one. And then you move into what only some people know. There's not enough electricity. It hallucinates. When you put layers on it to make it better, it actually ends up becoming a liar and actually less useful. And then you'll move on to why what everybody knows is wrong. Well, it'll actually be relevant for certain parts of the world, certain things. The financial bubble, if it bursts before we get any further, AI is off the table. And then you move on to what no one else knows. It's more persuasive than a human. The best place to use AI is in, say, sales, because human beings, they make 3 phone calls. Everyone says, no, we hate you. And then they stop. AI just keeps going. There are things like most people unwittingly end up worshipping AI because it writes better grammar than them. It makes more sense than them. And you see, it feels silly to argue with it. And especially if you can't check it, the trick is always get AI to write about something you know about or something you don't know about. You'll be so impressed about the things you don't know anything about. But if you're an expert in an area, you'll always find it's actually at the median. It's because it's an interpolation machine. Okay, so it's never going to go off the edges. And then there are funny things like OpenAI, which is one of the big AI companies, announced we're not going to need any more stuff, and now it's recruiting. So there's some weird stuff going on around that. And then you'd probably move on to implications. You know, one of the pets you might have come across is digital destiny. So use that to help you think strategically. Watch your competitors fail so you can laugh at them and avoid what they're doing. And then recommendations might be things like use multiple AI. I always say 2 minimum, maybe 3. Put the same prompt in all of them. It avoids the God syndrome because you get 3 answers and then you have to think rather than just accepting what you're told. So people who are lazy just use one AI and it drives them crazy and makes them really silly. But not my problem. Apply AI solutions to most senior people. So use AI to get rid of your CEO, and then afterwards, people will behave themselves. Engage your people in developing the strategy so it all fits together. So those are the sort of recommendations you'd have. And then you come to your summary. And so with the summary, of course, what you do if you're working collaboratively is you take the individual key things which you want to talk about. You write down hard things and soft things and what people know and so on. And once you've got this, guess what? You just then put that into words and sentences and you'll have your Eureka blog. So that's how to collaboratively come up with a communication which breaks through what people know, really helps them to focus on something useful, is not boring, and can be developed collaboratively. It's called Eureka Blog, and I expect to read that from you next. I've been Eddie Obeng. Subscribe to the newsletter, read the quick guide. We'll meet again.